Mickey 17 is now out in theaters. Let's take a look back at some of Robert Pattinson and the rest of the cast's biggest films on this episode of Pop Culture Picks. Hey everyone, John Lusford here, and the latest film from Bong Joon-ho is here. After winning Best Picture with Parasite, we now have Mickey 17, starring Robert Pattinson, Naomi Ackie, Yeun, Mark Ruffalo, and Toni Collette. So let's take a look back at some of the best films from Robert Pattinson and some of the top from the rest of the cast. Starting off at number 5 for Robert Pattinson, I'm going to go with The Boy and the Heron. I thought this movie was really good, although I didn't think it was quite as good as Across the Spider-Verse, and I wish Across the Spider-Verse had won the Oscar instead, but what really made this film work for me was having a very good English dub cast. I know a lot of people are purists and want to see the movie in its original Japanese form, but I think getting a legitimate cast to come in and do some great voice work was what really pushed this over the top for me. It starts with Robert Pattinson, who played the Grey Heron, and he actually voice acted. A lot of times you get big names that just want to put their name on the poster and then just talk for the character, but Robert Pattinson did an actually good job being a voice actor, as did the rest of the cast, but I was really impressed by his work, and the movie overall was very good because of it. For number 4, what better option to put at number 4 than the 4th book and movie in the Harry Potter series with Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire? I know a lot of people like Prisoner Azkaban and other books, but Goblet of Fire is my favorite book, and I thought the movie was done pretty well also. For those that aren't Harry Potter fans, first off, what's wrong with you? And second, this is the one film that features Robert Pattinson as Cedric Diggory. We saw Cedric in a previous film for a quick second, but it was played by another actor, but Cedric is a major player in the Goblet of Fire. Part of why I love this book is, A, it opens up the wizarding world outside of Hogwarts a little more. We see the Quidditch World Cup. We see other schools come in for the Triwizard Tournament. And it really opens up the world outside of Hogwarts from the first few books. And B, it also starts providing real-world consequences around Lord Voldemort coming back. And it's not just a story with Harry anymore. It's a story for everyone. And this comes to a head when Cedric is killed at the end by Voldemort. And it lets people know that Voldemort's back and that he's out for blood. I thought Robert Pattinson did a really good job in this role, and this is one that I revisit more than most Harry Potter books and films. Number 3 on the list, I'm going to go with Good Time. This actually wasn't the first A24 movie I saw Robert Pattinson in. That belongs to The Rover, which they distributed, but I didn't think that one was very good. But this one was also my first introduction to the Safdie brothers. This film stars Robert Pattinson as a small-time criminal who's trying to free his brother, played by Benny Safdie, from police custody while also trying to avoid being arrested himself. Benny Safdie is great in this as well, and he plays Robert Pattinson's little brother who has a developmental disability. Pattinson got nominated for a ton of smaller awards for this, and for the Safdies, it ultimately led to Uncut Gems a couple of years later with Adam Sandler, which is probably seen as their best movie. Good Time is a very well-made, albeit in-your-face movie that I very much recommend. Number 2 on the list, when Robert Pattinson was announced as Batman, I didn't hate it, but I wasn't 100% sure what I would ultimately think about it. And now that we have it, I loved it. I hate that we're going to have to wait so long for the second Batman movie because this one was very well done. I thought Matt Reeves did a great job, and I was already a fan of his because of Cloverfield, and it had an incredible cast top to bottom with Robert Pattinson at the top. I liked in this movie that we didn't get the whole parents getting killed outside the theater thing to start off, and we just jumped right into the story. But that's what made Pattinson's portrayal so great. I never felt like, oh, this is a new Batman I have to get used to. It just worked. And in the grand scheme of Batman, it's probably still behind the Nolan trilogy, but while this is probably blasphemous to say, I probably like Pattinson's portrayal better than any other portrayal that we've had of the character outside of Christian Bale in the Nolan trilogy. So if you saw my A24 horror movie list, you know that at the top of this list is going to be The Lighthouse. It was at the top there, and it's at the top here. It's a great film from Robert Eggers that, along with The Witch, paved the way for Nosferatu this past year. It stars Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe as basically the only two people in the movie, so they have to carry it themselves. And Pattinson does an incredible job. They both do an incredible job, but Robert Pattinson does a really good job here. I wish it would have gotten more recognition in award season than it did because it was a great movie, and it felt almost like I was watching a really well-produced play. It's weird, it's got some twisted parts to it, but overall, I would very much recommend it. It's black and white, but has incredible cinematography, and it's number 1 on my list for a reason. Some honorable mentions for Robert Pattinson. I had also on my A24 horror list, High Life. I thought Pattinson did a good job in this kind of weird sci-fi horror film. It's got a little bit of Mickey 17 in it with him being in space, so I do recommend that one. The one Nolan film he's done so far, he is going to be in The Odyssey coming up, but he was in Tenet. I didn't hate Tenet. I think Pattinson and the whole cast was good in it. I think Nolan was just on a path of, I have to outdo myself with every next film, and it made it a little too confusing and hard to follow. And I know Tenet is not near the top for a lot of people with Nolan films. And then I have to include the thing that really made Pattinson the star he is with Twilight. I have to give him credit. He's still going along with Twilight, and he's not treating it as a bad thing, which I feel like a lot of stars seem to do with those first big franchises they're in as they start to distance themselves and not just be that one character. But I think Pattinson has done a good job continuing to play up the Edward Cullen parts of his life while also still being Bruce Wayne, Mickey 17, and all of his other roles as well. Next up, here are some of my favorite films from the rest of the cast and crew of Mickey 17. First off, let's start off with the director, Bong Joon-ho. I still need to see Memories of Murder. It's near the top of my watch list, but I am probably going to go with Parasite here. My introduction to Bong Joon-ho was actually Okja because, being a Netflix movie, it made it more accessible to watch. I really enjoyed that one, and he really hasn't done a bad movie in general. So that makes me excited for Mickey 17 and anything he does from now on, but I got to go with Parasite right now at number 1. For Naomi Ackie, I don't think anyone's really going to put The Rise of Skywalker on this list for her, and she does have a smaller filmography than others, and I know she's still young and will continue to have a great career. The movie didn't get as much praise, but she did a decent job as Whitney Houston in I Want to Dance with Somebody. But my pick for her is actually going to be Blink Twice from last year. The movie was kind of disturbing and needed a little bit more to kind of push it over the finish line, but I thought it was a decent movie, and I thought Naomi Ackie was very good in the lead in that movie. Next up, Steven Yeun. I know a lot of people know him from The Walking Dead, but that's just a show I can never really get into. I mentioned Okja being my introduction to Bong Joon-ho, and that's the same for Steven Yeun. I really like Sorry to Bother You and Nope, which he was in both of those, but the choice for me here has to be Minari, which got him a nomination for Best Actor. The film was nominated for Best Picture. It was actually my second favorite movie of the year for 2020, behind The Father, which won Anthony Hopkins the Oscar over Steven Yeun. It's a very good movie. I highly recommend it. Another A24 movie there as well. For Mark Ruffalo, obviously he's had an incredible career, probably the best of anybody in this movie, and he's been nominated 4 times for an Oscar. He's someone I actually hope eventually gets there and wins one. His biggest thing now, obviously, is being the Hulk in the MCU, and I think he's a great Bruce Banner. He has a long career and a lot of movies that I can include and probably make a killer list one day on pop culture picks of his own. But one of my favorite movies of all time is one that he was integral in, and that is Spotlight. He was nominated for an Oscar for this, and the film won Best Picture. It's basically a perfect movie that told such a hard-to-tell story in an incredible way. Nothing will ever top this from Mark Ruffalo when it comes to his best movies, and he has had some really good ones. Finally, Toni Collette, another incredible career, as she has been nominated for an Oscar as well for her role in The Sixth Sense, and I don't know that it gets much better for movies that she's been in. I know a lot of people like Hereditary for her as not only one of her best horror roles, but just best roles in general, but I like The Sixth Sense more, and honestly, my second choice for her probably would be Little Miss Sunshine. She was nominated for an Oscar for that, but was nominated for multiple other awards, and it won the SAG Award for Best Ensemble Cast, which is basically their version of Best Picture, although it lost to The Departed at the Oscars. But I got to go with The Sixth Sense for Toni Collette. So what are your favorite films from the cast of Mickey 17 and, of course, director Bong Joon-ho? And what did you think of Mickey 17? Go see it, come back, let me know in the comments. We'll have a review up as well. Make sure to like this video and subscribe for more pop culture picks.